virtual and I was there.
How about that? We're flipping today. Okay, we're gonna be in sync pretty soon. The good news, we're gonna be in sync. We're headed together. We're converging.
I was told by the attorney for the airport commission that this is going to have to be all in person starting in June. So
Well, I look forward to
1st of
that.
July. So yeah.
Look forward to it. It'll be great. I look
Yeah.
forward to being in person. I missed that.
I think we're ready.
Okay, wonderful. How many members do we have? We're gonna do a roll call anyway. Welcome and introduction, everyone. Statement regarding virtual meetings do not need to be read here on page 2 of our agenda. However, we will do a roll call vote. If you would please, Diane, do a roll call vote at this point, 1B.
Okay, Mr. Blackwood. Ms.
Here.
Thank you. Chairman Holland,
Aye.
Dr. Newbell.
She's not coming today. Unable to make it.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. O'Bannon,
Here.
Ms. Page,
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. Next item, old business, April 28, 21 meeting minutes, rather, page 3. Any corrections or updates to the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move that they be approved as presented.
Second.
It's been approved and second. No discussion, or the minutes are approved and that motion carries. Thank you very much for that item. Item B, COVID relief update, page 6 of our agenda. All right, would someone like to brief us on COVID relief?
Yes,
Martha?
included in your packet, starting there on page 6, you will see the letter that was submitted to our property management company requesting the rent relief that was discussed actually 2 meetings ago. I've also included following that letter, the response that we got when we initially sent the letter, starting on page 6 from PlanRVA to our property management company and of course to our property owner. They invited Mr. Berkey and I to participate in a meeting. So he and I met 2 Mondays ago to talk with the owner and the owner's representatives. And then this subsequent letter, starting on page 8, was provided back to us. In summary, the property owner did express an interest in working with us. I think that they value us as a tenant and would very much like to have discussions with us about the potential to renew. However, they are not interested in any sort of a rent relief or rebate program unless we want to incorporate that into an extension. So they would view any kind of a rent relief or a rebate as a loan, as opposed, for temporary to address cash flow or that kind of a thing, not as, just a straight, refund, if you will, to us. So he's also included in the letter some of their intentions that we talked about. I did seize the opportunity to share, some feedback with them about concerns that we had that you all have been privy to with regard to, facilities and that kind of thing. And I think he was very receptive to our suggestions. And as you can see, has indicated that they have already made some improvements to the facilities and infrastructure here and are very interested in continuing to work post-COVID, to pursue whatever is on the other side of this as far as addressing air quality and whatnot. So wanted to share the outcome of that discussion since it was something that originated from this committee.
Yes, we appreciate that. Not as what I anticipated. And I'm sure probably other members of the committee probably anticipated a little something differently as well. Just an extension, if you will. And not sure that does anything for us.
Yeah. All this is not much would be my comment. Was he says, hey, we added hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
This is not much. I would not take this as positive.
I did not receive it positively as well. And I hope and trust that you all as well feel the same way. So that means that we're still open and looking, I hope.
I would like to ask a question on this.
Yes, please.
If I completely understand they're not willing or interested in giving us a break if we're not going to stay. But you indicated they're calling it a loan, so we would have to pay it back even if we did stay. Are they willing to give us the break and it'd be permanent if we stay and not have to be paid back, or if they did that, and if we agreed, but we would pay it back if we didn't stay, then and if we think we might stay, then it might be worth considering.
I think you'll see in the letter, and certainly in the conversation that we had, there was an invitation for us to submit a more detailed request with a proposed structure for what a rent deferral could look like. So your comments about the caveat of if a lease renegotiation were to occur, that there could be a forgiveness, and if there were not to occur, then there would be a repayment. I think that, that's an option that we could pursue. In the meeting that we had, I think he made it clear that they were disappointed to know that we are this close to the end of the lease term, and without a surety of whether or not we have intentions of staying, that we were asking for this relief. So I think both parties are sort of looking for an extension of an olive branch, and it's a question of who goes first.
What were we asking for to begin with?
We asked, as included in the letter on page 6, we asked for 3 months
3 months.
of
Rent
relief.
relief.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
In exchange for that, we did offer to extend our lease period for 3 months, but not repay. So we proposed to extend occupancy, but not repay the deferral of 3 months.
And they are not offering that. As I read this, and this is, I think, the kicker, we can defer the requested rent with an agreement that the deferred rent be fully amortized and paid back over the remaining lease term or an extended lease term. In essence, no relief. That's what,
That's right.
in essence. So as we had anticipated, it's not the case. So I don't see what else we could do given that definitive offer from him. Unless anyone else has a better, more ideal, that I just don't see anything else that we can provide.
Well, as I said, not much.
I agree. I fully agree. Pat.
I mean, they're not going, oh, please stay, let's try this, let's do this. I mean, they're just sort of saying, okay, maybe, that's the attitude I'm getting. It's,
Yeah. And fully
they're
paid.
not really excited. We can, you can leave, sure, go ahead, but pay us.
Okay, absolutely.
I don't see anybody getting all upset or getting excited. So
Exactly. I think that's pretty much the sentiment. I agree fully.
I'm
Any
sorry.
other comments on that, or what do you think, any additional action you think we should take, or are you pretty much settled?
This, I hate to say it, but this spurs me to think in terms of looking for somewhere else. They have not been, they haven't looked for ways to assist. They haven't helped us in the past. And their comment about we're just a small company just means like, so that's why we can't do anything to help you. I mean, they're not interested in assisting.
Yeah, I agree fully, Pat. I'm in total agreement with your sentiment, your thoughts as well. I agree with you.
So that's all.
And you all, I agree with the entire group, so very good. All right, that's settles that, unless anyone else has a recommendation for relief. Otherwise, we'll move on to item 3, new business, and discuss April financial statements and 21 outlook.
Mr. Chair, I will turn it over to Dan Van Dornick.
Wonderful.
He, as you all know, is our interim director of finance through VML-VACO and VML-VACO Financial. And we're glad to have you, and you'll review the financials for us.
All right, thank you. I was just going to highlight a few items.
If you would.
Looking at the balance sheet and the net statement net position on page 10 of your package. The The organization is in a net positive position in its P&L.
Thank you.
It is showing up in very positive
It was a
places.
big buildup, Dan.
Oh, it looks that way.
I like the suspense. It's a calendar. There's only so many ways you can dress it
You
up.
suspended me too.
The cash balances are increasing accordingly. The accounts receivable and the accrued revenue are in good shape.
Good. Good mark with
The
you
accounts
down.
receivable is mostly
Mhm.
current.
Mhm.
There's one customer whose receivable is, I think, in the 60-day bracket, but it is on schedule for payment.
We expect them to pay.
Yes. So they're in good shape. The accrued revenue,
Mhm.
last month reported that there were some questions and some things we need to look into. And that element is also a clean number at this point, a reliable one. And we continue to, review these elements as, we progress through, week by week, to make sure that that revenue cycle is well documented, well controlled, and well understood.
Mhm.
As you all know, that's your lifeblood. There is nothing to note in the essentially the rest of the balance sheet. The accounts payable, they are also all current. Accrued expenses, that's your accrued salaries that were accrued as of April 30th that are paid out on May 15th. So there's no real hidden issues in these balance sheet numbers.
Now, on the 1250 accrued revenue, what constitutes that primarily, Dane? The 592?
That is an accrual across all of your grantors, all of your
All.
programs.
All the grant programs.
Every single month, given that your income is driven by services worked by staff here,
Mhm.
those hours worked, they are charged to each of the programs. They're dollarized as to what the grants allow.
Okay, and you set up as a receivable.
And we set it up,
Opposite
that
side.
we accrue it
That's okay,
as revenue
okay,
every single month. When we
okay,
go to the point to actual bill,
okay,
request payment from
okay,
the client or the grantor, that's when it moves up into 1,200.
okay,
And so we relieve the accrued
okay, the accrued revenue, okay.
because,
Accrued receivable. You could put the word receivable there if you like.
Yeah.
Be better than the revenue, because when I think about that revenue, I think about unearned revenue, which is my thought process, as you know. I think unearned revenue, which is,
yeah, and that's where the deferred revenue
okay,
is 2525 near the bottom
25,
of that
25,
page.
okay.
So
Yeah,
there is,
I got you,
there is that amount, there is that factor.
okay, got you.
The key with
Okay.
the accrued revenue is you actually earn your revenue as you perform services.
So it's truly earned then, it should be
So
booked.
it's truly earned.
And
So
it
this
should be
number,
booked.
it's
Exactly.
offset as revenue.
Okay, right, you're absolutely right, okay, very
Okay.
good. All right.
So that's where your revenue is first shown. And then it migrates, when it gets billed, it goes up to 1,200. The accounts
Exactly.
receivable when it's received.
And then we get the cash.
That's
We leave
cash.
it when we receive the cash. Yep, that cash is in there too.
That's a plan on the architect.
Did you get all that? So, so that's what I wanted to highlight on your balance sheet.
All right.
So moving over to your profit and loss.
Okay.
Starting with the bottom first, page 14. April
Okay.
showed
Sure. Good.
a third consecutive substantial net surplus, 32,000. And this was driven by a month where the actual charge hours by personnel
Okay,
were, I believe, the highest of the year. So the amount of leave was at its lowest for April. So
okay,
that was the primary driver for this period.
Okay. Yeah, see, we increased from 53 to 75 net income, so about $22,000 increase, about 22,000 increase from last March. Okay. Okay. Good.
And
Other
so-
questions, comments?
I
So
just
take-
have a thought that I wanted to, I see their monthly rent, and when we look at new places to rent, just to think about the cost of that.
Mhm.
It's $20,190.24 a month and 20,800, that sort of thing. Obviously, that's what we're thinking when we're thinking as this committee, you know, and looking for another location. Just a thought to look at and keep in mind.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, yeah. Looking at your rent line item year to date with $208,000 thus far. Any other questions, any other concerns? And what about, we talked about, I think you mentioned it, reiterate, however, regarding leave, and you said no major leave impact at this point.
Well, in April,
In
you had,
April.
you had the smallest leave impact. There will be
Smallest
more
Will be
leave
more possible May, June,
in May and June.
May and June. Okay.
Definitely will have an uptick in leave in May and June because we
sense.
know what staff have scheduled.
Okay,
And so as you know, we're tracking that monthly
okay,
and we know what staff are planning to do. And so we expect that May and June will not be as high performing
mhm,
because of that
I
variable.
believe, okay. All right,
But along with that, the sensitivity of the leave, we don't expect it to
mhm,
undo the
The
progress of the
overwhelm.
last 3 months.
right, that's good to know.
So it won't build at the same rate, but it won't undo.
All right, excellent. Any other concerns from you all regarding expenditures in areas of concern that y'all see?
Just a question. What about the miscellaneous expenses? What are some of those under 7290? What sort of things are miscellaneous?
One of the biggest expenditures in that category, Diana, correct me if I'm wrong, has been the electrostatic cleaning that we've had scheduled. We have terminated that cleaning based on the latest CDC guidance that suggests that touchable spaces are not a driver for transmission of the virus. So but that expenditure was a monthly expense carried on and was built to that category.
Mhm,
I think in prior months, our shredding services was also categorized there, but we terminated that several months ago.
mhm.
So that's why you see a little bit of that variability month over month.
You're referring to line item 7290, is that correct, Pat?
Yes, yes, just interested because usually it would be in a column somewhere, you know, whatever it is, but okay. I
All
get it.
right. Gotcha, okay. All right, that's good to know. Continues to improve, that's great news, thank you again for that. The effort.
We will include these statements, the balance sheet and profit and loss in the board packet that will be distributed next week for the June 10th meeting.
Mhm.
So if the committee desires, you could forward it with, you know, your recommendation to accept the financial statements.
Sure, we would probably do that, that might be a good idea, good, to send that quite. Okay. All right. Let's see here. It's good overall. Any other questions or concerns from anyone? How are we progressing with regard to, I will discuss it probably later, but in terms of the upcoming audit, anything in that regard? As we look at the financials, anything up and coming in that area? Martha, of concern to you?
No, we have, I know you mentioned previously you wanted to participate in the
Mhm.
kickoff. We've only, I think today, I have not communicated with back with him, but he has reached out today asking to schedule that. So
Okay,
Dan and
sure.
he and I will be working to coordinate
Yeah.
on that, to do the preliminary field work and kick off.
Yeah.
So, but no other items, I think. Yeah, I think Dan's efforts with Jill's support previously, I think have been working to clean up any of the areas that needed to be addressed, certainly before the end of the fiscal year.
Good, very good, thanks, that's great. Martha, Dan, appreciate that. All right. And no other questions on item A? Let's look at the F22 budget.
We've put this together.
Mhm.
It is formatted in the same format. Dan and I will be continuing to work to be able to develop what we would refer to as lines of business budgets within this, but this gives you the total
Mhm.
of, on the first page of this section, on page 15, you'll see the anticipated revenues, income, I should say, for the agency in fiscal year 2022. I've shown a column there that compares to the predicted income for the current fiscal year. These numbers are a little bit different than what you approved in the budget, because as you know, we did not amend the budget since it was approved, but we obviously have up-to-date predictions there. So, and then I've got a comparison total just so you can see the difference. I've tried to include in the notes section some explanation of why we have variation between fiscal year 21 predicted and fiscal year 22 proposed. So I'm happy to kind of walk through those, but just again, to sort of orient you, the income section is broken into type of funding: federal, state, local, and private. In the federal section, you'll see quite a bit of an increase in federal funding, particularly in our transportation programs. This is driven primarily by the proposal that we have as part of this budget to increase our staff capacity and to include 4 additional staff positions here in the agency. And the majority of that time for 3 of those positions would be billed to the transportation programs. So that's why you see that pretty significant jump in the revenue there. Moving down the slide, you'll see some variation in our environmental programs. The Rural Coastal Virginia Marketing Program, there's the first one with the note, and then the Lower Chickahominy. Those 2 programs are grants that will expire in September of this year. So they will carry over into the new fiscal year, but they do not get extended or renewed. So that's why you see that change from this year to next. And then similarly, the Coastal TA program, that is a renewable grant. So the current grant expires in September, but the new grant kicks up on October 1st. So that's why you don't see as much change in that category. Or rather, you do see an increase because it's the carryover balance plus the new award. And so it just is how that shakes out. Our WIP 3 line 4115, the Watershed Implementation Program, is a state grant. It's federal money passed through the state that's matched with state money and matched by us. Slight reduction there this fiscal year over next. Again, that is a grant that expires this coming December. I am optimistic that that grant will actually be renewed January 1 as it was this year, but we do not have confirmation. So I've only budgeted what we have confirmed and contracted. So it's possible that, come winter, we will have news that there will be additional revenue there. We have not budgeted the pass-through grants for the Department of Emergency Management yet. Similarly, we've submitted 8 grant applications, but they have not been approved. You've heard me say this before. I tend to try to be as conservative as possible on revenue and more liberal on expenses, just to get a clearer picture. I have every reason to believe that we will be successful with those grants, but have not included them here as revenue. If we do see the award, we will collect 5% as an administrative and management fee. The bulk of the other, the rest of the 95% is passed through. So it will not have a significant impact on our budget, but it is helpful to our operations. And then moving down, we'll have our hazard mitigation program continuing. And you will see, I did include the DCR floodplain management grant. That grant is an application pending. And similarly, I did not include this except for it has a match 50%. So I wanted to include it just so that we were accounting for that match obligation. So I almost did the reverse on this grant application because I wanted to make sure that we were holding those funds to match so we didn't over obligate ourselves. So that program is submitted where we will match with staff time $20,000, and if awarded, the grant will pay another $20,000 that would be used for marketing around flood preparedness, and so that would likely be a pass-through expense for us and not held internally. So, state funding, most of the state funding in this category are buckets that are used to match. The one variable that I have here is that we have a call scheduled for later this week, but if you look at line 4210, we are awaiting word from the Virginia Department of Transportation as to whether or not we will be eligible for this particular grant revenue source. So at the time I prepared the budget, I felt certain that this would be awarded. It is a renewable grant that we're eligible, but given the timing of the requested MPO boundary adjustment, it is possible that that funding will no longer be available to us. So we will wait and see. I will know the fate of that particular grant before the board meets. So that is one point that, you know, could change frankly between today and the 10th. Local funding, you'll see we've been very conservative, especially in light of the discussions that we have had over the last several months. So that's what's driving those, you know, slight downward trend on the TPO and the local membership dues assessments. You'll notice up in the state funding, we're getting an additional $14,000 from the General Assembly. So we're really pleased about that. And that primarily, you know, that almost offsets that reduction in the local member dues. So that's great to see in here.
Yeah, that's good.
And then we've have the line 4315, that is the CVTA support services agreement. That MOU goes to the full authority this Friday with a recommendation to approve by the Finance Committee. Happy to talk about that sort of more in detail, but we are planning to continue to provide support services to the CVTA for at least another year, sort of, you know, pending the bigger conversations that CVTA has around staff support and their needs. And then you'll notice Capital Region Collaborative funding, that is a return to our budget that was not budgeted this year. We did receive a complete transfer from PlanRVA of the private dollars that had been contributed several years ago to that partnership. They've transferred the dollars to us, and we will be using them in the coming fiscal year to update the regional indicators with the 2020 census and work to be able to keep that project going under PlanRVA's roof as opposed to the partnership with the chamber. So from a financial perspective, I would say that this would be the last year that you would see a Capital Region Collaborative initiative with the PDC and the chamber, and that will become something that's solely under roof here.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes.
What did it pay for? Was that just meeting expenses or what?
No, the funding will be used this year for staff time and probably some website updates as well. We need to migrate the content with the current indicators from the CRC webpage over to ours, you know, do some of that sort of technology cleanup, but most of it will be staff time this coming year, populating the data. Yeah. And then last but not least, that private funding section, a couple of things of note here that I think the Finance Committee will be particularly interested in, because there's a sizable number there. Our FOLAR program our partnership is expected to continue this year with no change. We have Mr. Peterson was asking before the meeting about one of our invoices. We did receive award this year from Virginia Housing, a $10,000, excuse me, a $20,000 grant. So I've budgeted that some of those funds will be funded or expended and reimbursed next fiscal year for a succession management plan professional development program here in the organization. That last line, 4440, the Regional Housing Production Grant, this is a new opportunity that was shared with all 21 planning district commissions just earlier this month. Applications are due on June 4th, and Every PDC has been invited to submit a request for, in our case, up to $3 million to support the development of affordable housing in the Richmond region. This is an opportunity unique to planning district commissions, and they have budgeted for all 21 PDCs to be funded in Virginia. Our region is eligible for $3 million for use over 3 years. So I just took the 3 million and divided it by 3. And our intention is to apply in partnership with Partnership for Housing Affordability so that they would be our implementation partner. So down in the expense side, you'll see the majority of these funds offset as an expense and pass through. But we do have the ability to retain some for management and administration, as well as capacity building here inside of our organization. So we're pretty excited about that.
Great.
It's another great way for us, frankly, to get funding for activities that we've been involved with, but have not had a revenue source before. And obviously the potential to be able to use a sizable amount of money available to the region to develop at least 30 or more units of affordable housing over 3 years is very exciting.
That is exciting.
Can I ask
Very much needed.
on that one too? What are the rules for the state? You said 30 affordable houses. I mean, what if the state is giving you the grant, is giving this organization the grant, what is it they're looking for? I mean, and how did they expect us to do it? I mean, they probably, I know they'll have some restrictions or rules. Are they requiring us, okay, are they requiring us to change their planning ordinances, or are they expecting us to build something or to pay somebody to build something? What is it that they will be requiring?
Their language is they want to position PDCs to be grant makers for affordable housing. So the expectation is that this money would go to a nonprofit housing developer. That could be a Habitat for Humanity in one of our localities. It could be Better Housing Coalition, or any of the players that are here in the Richmond region. Or it could go to a jurisdiction to be able to affect, many of the jurisdictions do allocate dollars to housing efforts and that kind of thing. So we, PlanRVA, will not be getting into the business of developing or construction or anything like that. So, but this would be guided through Partnership for Housing Affordability to determine, what the appropriate investment opportunities would be, and we're the mechanism to get that money to the region. So
We do have CDBG money that goes to organizations for improving housing, paying down payments, that sort of thing. So, but this money doesn't go to you mentioned some of the same organizations that we give community development block grants to. And those organizations have been vetted by, I know in Henrico, they went through a process. I'm sure Chesterfield, City of Richmond, other jurisdictions have some process that they use that for CDBG money, community development block grants. So is that, you would be working with them and adding to that? Or when you said you would be the person who is handing out the money, what is that? That's
our proposal is that we work with Partnership for Housing Affordability. That organization has appointments from every jurisdiction in the 9 localities that we serve. And so your staff members that allocate, in the example, CDBG and home funding and others, they sit at that table. And so this would be directed by them. Again, this is not our, area of expertise, and we do not want to compete with the jurisdictions or create another layer of paperwork for those nonprofit groups. So we want to make sure that this is lined with that. And I will say, for the 6 jurisdictions in the region who do not receive CDBG and home, this is an opportunity for those localities to have a say in how dollars could be invested, for senior housing programs, or, a Habitat for Humanity if you wanted to support something like that kind of thing.
Okay, that's good. That sounds great. And the follow-up grant is with Crater. We handled that for Crater.
Yes.
I remember we took it over maybe a year or so ago.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that position is still going strong. Heather Barrar
okay.
is still an employee of PlanRVA, and she spends about 90% of her time
Mhm.
moving the Friends of the Lower Appomattox Trail project forward, and they are just doing great work down in the southern part of the region, and it's very exciting, particularly leveraging her expertise. And I know what some of you are involved with the Ashland to Petersburg effort, and
Mhm.
some of the other trail work that's happening in the community.
Very good, very good.
Another question.
Yep. Boy.
What jurisdictions don't get CDBG money and why don't they apply for it? I mean, I didn't realize that. You said there's 6.
Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield are entitlement communities, and so they receive CDBG funding directly from the federal government. The other localities in our region aren't large enough. That's sort of the simple answer. And so they can access CDBG money, but they have to go through a competitive grant application process on a project basis with the state. So they don't have an annual pool of funding to do community development projects.
Mhm.
And I would say that the jurisdictions that don't get CDBG money probably could use it the best or most wisely. Personally, that's my opinion. And so
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I just didn't know that. Didn't realize that they aren't all, they don't all qualify. Because I will say a few years ago, the federal government wanted to discontinue the program, and I didn't realize that rural jurisdictions didn't qualify for the money. So,
Have to apply. If, for example, if Hanover wanted to use CDBG for a project, they would have to apply to the state for that project. They don't get an allocation every year that they can program how they wish.
great.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
truly would, and others would need it too. It's truly needed throughout. So that would be, that's good that you can help facilitate that. That's good then. Good thing.
So it was maybe more detailed than you wanted to hear on the revenue, but that's kind of
Okay.
that summary. Expenses, I'll be a little bit quicker, but on the expenses, again, they're broken out by category, very similar to, actually incredibly similar to what you see in the financial statements every month. You'll see some notes kind of off to the side again on the salary and wages. Part of the variation here from the proposed to the predicted in this year is driven by 2 primary things. One is just the literal change in staffing that we're proposing. And then the second is because we're getting better year over year in allocating the leave by full-time leave chargeable, full-time leave absorbed through the indirect, part-time, and that kind of thing. So again, we are proposing that 4 new positions be approved as part of the budget for this year. Those would include an executive support position for general administration of PlanRVA, a program support position that would be shared between the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization and the CVTA to be able to provide the logistical and administrative support there. We have included in the budget a proposed for an outreach coordinator that would be focused on leading our organization, coordinating, I should say, our agency's efforts around public engagement and working with staff to make sure that we are doing better than we are now on that front. And then the final position would be, I have it in my notes, as like a data manager. We'd like to be able to, as you know, continue to build our capacity around research, data analysis. And so we'd like to be able to hire someone with specific competency around quantitative data analysis and data collection. So those 4 positions are included in these figures.
I have a question. The person who is going to do community outreach, is that a full-time or a part-time job?
These are all 4, it's a full-time position. Yes, ma'am.
Well, because, all right, we really need a full-time person for community outreach. I mean, what would you anticipate them doing full-time? Because
They would be the primary person responsible for coordinating our public outreach activities. Right now, that's spread across our agency. So, it would be everything from managing the strategy on our Don't Trash Central Virginia campaign to public engagement plan for the TPO and the long range transportation plan, our hazard mitigation planning work, across all of our programs. Right now, we have individual staff that are carrying the load for each of those individual pieces. And then finally, of course, the emergency management program, we get a sizable grant every year for public outreach in that. So there's quite a bit of work actually that our agency does and wants to continue to do in getting the public more aware of how to get involved in these areas.
I hate to say it, but I don't think they care unless it's an emergency or it's coming through their backyard.
So from a position standpoint, I know Mr. Holland, you often ask about this. Currently, with all of our staff members that are on deck right now in this
Yeah.
fiscal year,
Mhm.
that equates to 21.5 FTEs.
Okay,
And that's a combination of about 24 people. So that's a mix of full-time and part-time people that equate to
Mhm.
21.5. This proposal would take our staff positions to 25.5, so it's a net of 4. But it would reduce our part-time grouping down. So we would
Okay.
have, we would still continue to have our mobility coordinator that's a part-time position at about 32 hours a week.
Mhm.
And then we have 1 summer intern, and we have 2 students from University of Richmond that work during the school year with us, and those are unpaid positions. So
Mhm.
this would definitely change our
Mhm.
staffing model to having kind of this cobbled together block of 6 or 8 part-timers to more full-time, regular positions.
Okay, and it'd be nice to model as we've done in the past, to sort of outline those by
Sure,
different categories
sure.
and a head count role, if you will, worksheet.
I can do that.
Head count, that'll be nice if you do that. Because I'll make sure that you're not overwhelmed with CVTA.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot of work, as they're getting off the ground, it's a lot of initial work, and then once it gets going, okay, it shouldn't be as demanding, but hopefully there's a lot, I'm sure, on
Yes,
you and your staff to do that, to do the support that they require.
and I will add, Finance Committee had a pretty lengthy discussion at the CVTA's Finance Committee, I guess about a week or so ago,
Mhm.
about its future staffing needs. And so I think over the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be a lot more discussion about that. And so
Mhm.
our staffing plan in this budget does not contemplate a long-term role with CVTA, but I
okay.
think we can easily accommodate that if that's a direction that the CVTA wants to go. So
Mhm.
I think if the CVTA wants to continue to partner with PlanRVA, we have the capacity, certainly through the staffing plan, to be able to do that, and can, work with them to identify an appropriate kind of cost model for that. But right now, the CVTA support would include myself, Chuck Parsons, and this half of the program support position that we have included in the budget. So just want to be clear about that. We're not
Mhm.
in this proposal recommending a executive for the CVTA. That would be, when CVTA is ready for that, we would
Mhm.
decide whether that's something we
Mhm.
will participate in or not.
Mhm.
Did I say that
That's
kind
a
of
bit
correctly?
of a, that is a bit of a question right now. I
Yeah.
think there are members of the CBTA
Mhm.
who would like to rush a little bit faster than others
Right, right.
and getting an executive director on board.
Yeah.
I personally think that PlanRVA is going to be on board for the full year. And even if somebody's brought on, if they're not, they're going to need the support of PlanRVA.
Mhm.
So I think it's valid to consider that for the full year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree fully.
And
Yeah.
I guess my hope is that we will continue to have, it was a really good discussion at the
Mhm.
Finance Committee meeting, and I think my hope is that we'll continue to have discussions that if it is going to end up being the full year, that
Mhm.
there's some consideration that we will need to address that capacity need. So
I personally think that there's room for a long-term cooperative situation with CBTA.
I agree.
I think that it
Yes,
will
ma'am.
be, I think that it'll be long-term, just in hearing
Mhm.
the presentations that we heard at the full board meeting. So I think it will always be a part of it.
Mhm.
I just don't know if the roles will decrease, but I think it will always be a part of it. I have a question other than that, and
Mhm.
that is, I like the way the positions are broken down by where they're needed. but it doesn't give me a total for all of the new positions.
Okay,
Total salary for that, and then in the proposed budget for FY22, is there any consideration for cost of living or performance salary increases?
Bonuses, in other words.
Hmm.
Give me a bonus.
yes, thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
We are also incorporating into this proposal a 3% pool that could be awarded to staff members based on performance and or cost of living. I know the jurisdictions have all been contemplating that in this last year, and so we generally try to take your lead on that. But the numbers that you see there have that additional compensation incorporated into it. So I can give you a table that would show it by position or category, to your point, and then also what the current, at current rates
Yeah.
plus the increase, what that pool
Okay.
number is like.
I have a question,
Yes,
not
yes, Pat?
a general question.
Yeah.
The printing costs on 7230, are those just in-house? Will an employee just prints out something on the printer at $29,000?
Yes, ma'am. The printing line item includes our copier leasing as well as paper, supplies and the ink cartridges and the copier machine maintenance. That's the all-inclusive number. So good question.
So it includes leasing a machine, not owning a machine, but okay.
You recall, we did renegotiate earlier this, winter, I guess, the copiers. So we do have less expensive machines, and Diane did a really great job in updating that. So you'll see, like, this fiscal year, we're projected at 35,000. Next fiscal year, we think we're going to be able to achieve a savings there, down to 29,000.
Saw that, but you're still leasing a copying machine. Okay. Well, it says printing, so.
Yeah, I can include a note there to say what that includes. That's a good point.
And how many copies is that?
We have 2 that are part of the leased program.
This
And
is nothing.
maintenance.
I mean, that church pays this much.
So they're the high capacity, high
It's
volume.
expensive
printers.
for recent copiers and maintenance agreements, and all that. And they change their computers every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So, you find out that you're in the realm of doing it again. I'm on the board of supervisors of some loggers, so they absolutely love the fact that, we're using this much paper.
Yeah, I know they do.
I mean, really, and you can't, the paper costs so much that the
Right.
schools can get it cheaper.
Yeah.
So we order all our copy paper through the schools.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
Well,
See,
that's
I don't
kind
know
of
about
that's kind of what I was thinking is, I know that you've sent information online, the 30-page booklet or whatever it is. We've cut down that, and I'm hoping that has cut down mailing costs, though I don't know. And you're right. I mean, that's a lot of papers, but I don't know, the county, not the county, but other organizations buy their own printers. And then, just as Ms. Page said, you buy new computers, but you just buy the whole thing each time and it ends up being cheaper. But I have not done an analysis, obviously the PDC, so.
We can look into, I know the last time we did the analysis, the leasing model was more affordable, but we can certainly work on that this year, I would think.
Well, it's a pretty big one-line item, it's a pretty big chunk, and people are pushing to just have everything online. I know that, but I still like it in my hand to carry it around or when I'm sitting somewhere and waiting for somebody. But
I think you're right. People like to have it, we're saying, we want to put it online, but all they're doing is transferring the cost to the recipient instead of the sender.
Mhm.
exactly.
And
But
on
I printed it out
postage,
with my computer, so,
establish the postage budget, we've spent very little on postage this year.
Right.
But as we think about in-person meetings, to your point, I kind of expect that members will want to have a hard copy again. whereas you've been doing it on the computer and virtual, but I think when you come back to the in-person meeting, you'll want a hard copy. And
Because
most
your
of-
costs went down, but mine went up.
That's right. So we're looking, I mean, I'm trying to be mindful that I don't think you all are gonna bring in your hard copy into the meeting anymore. You're gonna wanna come in just like you did today and come in and have a copy provided to you.
Okay.
I'll
Yes.
add it out there that in-person meetings, I mean, the emergency order will be dropped between now and July 1st, and even maybe sooner than that. And we will not be able to have the virtual meeting, anymore. And I kind of worried, I'm sorry about that, because I know there's always somebody who can't make it, and would be great if we could continue, but they will not be able to vote. I'll put it that way. I guess you could continue on, but they would not be able to vote if they were remote. So just keep that in mind. We're going to have to do away with the old emergency order within the next month or so.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
It'll
that's
make it
good.
work.
That's good. Any other questions? Overall, great focus, Martha, on the budget. Dan,
Yeah, so I'll
great
just,
job.
I'll just
Great
say one more
focus.
thing. If you skip to that last
Sure.
page on page 17,
Yeah.
this is where sort of you see the summary of
Right.
the math.
Yeah, I see.
You'll see the net operating income is projected for next fiscal year at 45,750.
Yeah,
I think, we'll continue to have conversations with Dan and the committee about this, but for purposes of just kind of planning ahead and the discussions that we've had about office space and that kind of thing, I've parked that surplus in the capital expense item, and I think the committee has discussed this numerous times before. Those funds would not be eligible for expenditure by staff, myself, until the committee reviews it and approves the commitments. But, I think that realistically, given what we're likely to need to undertake this coming fiscal year with office things, we need to make sure that we're planning to have resources available for that. So operating wise, we're expecting a surplus, but I think that surplus could quickly be allocated as we move through this year and your decisions about, direction we go with space.
mhm. Okay.
So this will
Okay.
be included on the packet, in the packet for the meeting in June, and certainly would appreciate, I will make these suggestions that you have and provide that information as well in that presentation, but certainly would appreciate any direction to the full commission from the committee if you're willing.
Okay. We appreciate your ideas and suggestions too, and recommendations you have. I appreciate it. And it's good you'll continue another year with CVTA too, because I think there's a lot to sort out there, a lot more than meets that in that area regionally. I think that's important. So appreciate your efforts there.
We need to make a motion to send this,
So,
recommend this to budget.
she would like, she stated earlier, she would like us to make a recommendation to the regular full committee. If you would make a recommendation, we'll follow the motion. So, please.
And you're gonna make it with the changes, correct?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
include the comparison of the current versus new positions and the breakout of the salaries of current rates and proposed increases,
Okay.
and include, well, I guess we just talked about, the idea. Well, I'll make the note that the printing line item includes the equipment leasing.
Okay. All right. It's been
A
moved.
second.
It's been moved and properly second.
With the changes.
With the changes as noted. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, that motion, all those in favor, sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion, ayes, any opposed? That motion carries. All is unanimous, approved by the committee for recommendation to the full body. Thank you. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Diane.
Sure.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank the committee too for that tremendous job. It's been an interesting year, but it's going better and better as days go by. So we appreciate that and thank you all.
And thank you, sir. Good meeting you.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you for taking some of the load off the office. Jake, too.
If I could just make sort of a general announcement for
Please.
the members as well as others.
You may.
We have yet another interesting year before us as far as leadership for the commission. So the charter, I believe Mrs. O'Bannon, the Henrico County Board took action on the charter. And so the charter has now been approved by all 9 jurisdictions.
Okay.
So we'll be circulating that for signatures and whatnot. And we'll talk more about this at the commission meeting. But in the midst of that, Reverend Nelson from Henrico and Dr. Newville from the city of Richmond had agreed to serve on the nominating committee. So they will be working to present a recommended slate of officers. And I think you all know our rotation has kind of been irregular
Yes.
the last few years. So we know where some of our executive committee members stand as far as what their intentions would be, but not all. So I will just say a general announcement that the desires of the persons and the localities would be helpful to know as we try to support the nominating committee in their efforts. And then following election of the officers, our new chair will make appointments to committees. So if you're interested in serving on the finance committee going forward, it would also be helpful to let the new chair, when we know who that is. Mr. Winslow is the vice chair and has expressed interest, but so if you're interested in serving or not serving, it would be helpful to let him know that as we look to formulate the committee. We obviously don't want this committee to languish during any kind of year-to-year transition.
Who was scheduled, what jurisdiction was scheduled to have the chairmanship?
The current vice chair is Chris Winslow from Chesterfield. Our current treasurer is Mr. Peterson from.
And I will be replaced by Mr. Davis.
Yeah, so he will be replaced on the executive committee by Mr. Davis from Hanover. New Kent was in the rotation, but we need to talk with you, frankly, about that.
Really? Okay.
Well, just to make sure we're not skipping when we shouldn't.
I'm just playing.
And then Powhatan has the seat for secretary right now. And just literally today, I got word that Mr. Byerly is going to be taking the seat on the executive committee. So we just need to make sure that everybody's teed up and that no jurisdiction loses their place in the rotation.
All right. Good. Any other business to come before the committee?
Okay.